It is a very, very real thing, and it surprised me how strong those feelings were.
For years, Ruth Langsford and Eamonn Holmes were seen as one of television's most unshakable couples. On screen, they had effortless chemistry, laughing, teasing, and working side by side like best friends. To viewers, they looked solid, the kind of relationship people believed would last forever. But behind the scenes, the reality was far more complicated. Now, at 66, Ruth is finally opening up about what really went wrong and why their 14-year marriage came to an end. What she's revealed paints a very different picture from the one audiences thought they knew. Before the fame and headlines, Ruth's story was much simpler. Born in Singapore in 1960 and raised in London, she didn't come from a glamorous background. Her early career in television was steady but unremarkable, starting as a continuity announcer and newscaster. It wasn't instant stardom, it was years of quiet, discipline, and persistence. Her breakthrough came when she joined Loose Women in 1999. It was a shift into a more open, personality-driven space, where viewers connected with who you were, not just what you said. Ruth stepped away for a time, then returned stronger, eventually becoming a central figure on the panel. Around the same time, her presence on This Morning began to grow. What started as guest appearances turned into a long-standing role, making her one of the show's most recognizable faces. Then, in 2006, everything changed. That was the year Eamonn joined her as a co-host. Their on-screen chemistry was instant, natural, warm, and believable. But what viewers didn't fully realize was that their professional partnership was already intertwined with something deeper. Their story actually began years earlier. They first met in 1997 through a mutual friend. At the time, Eamonn had recently separated from his first wife, and the relationship developed slowly and privately. There was no rush, no public spectacle, just a connection that quietly grew stronger. By 2002, they welcomed their son, Jack, and their lives became increasingly intertwined, both personally and professionally. When they began hosting This Morning together regularly, their relationship became part of the show itself. Audiences weren't just watching presenters, they were watching a real couple navigate life together. Over time, they built a brand around that image. From shows like How the Other Half Lives to joint appearances across television, they became a familiar, dependable duo. In 2010, they married, solidifying what already seemed like a lifelong partnership. On the surface, everything aligned: career success, family life, and public admiration. But beneath that polished image, things were slowly shifting. By 2020, cracks had begun to form. That year, they were unexpectedly removed from their roles on This Morning. While it seemed like a professional decision, it reportedly hit both of them hard. Soon after, their careers began to move in different directions. Ruth remained with ITV, while Eamonn stepped into a new role elsewhere. It wasn't a dramatic break, it was a gradual drift. Then came May 2024. The announcement was brief and almost emotionless: their marriage was over, and they were divorcing. For a relationship that had lasted nearly 3 decades, the simplicity of the statement felt almost surreal. But behind that short message was a much deeper story. In the years leading up to the split, Eamonn had been battling serious health issues. Chronic back pain, multiple surgeries, and reduced mobility had changed his daily life completely. He eventually relied on a wheelchair and required assistance for everyday tasks. Throughout it all, Ruth was there, supporting him, caring for him, and holding things together behind the scenes. Which is why what happened next felt even more devastating. According to reports, the turning point came when Ruth overheard Eamonn having an intimate phone conversation with another woman. He believed he was alone, but he wasn't. Ruth was in the house, hearing everything unfold in real time. That moment changed everything. Soon after, she reportedly discovered messages on his laptop, confirming her fears. What followed wasn't just an argument, it was a complete breakdown of trust. Although the marriage continued briefly, it never truly recovered. For Ruth, the shock was overwhelming. She later admitted that, from her perspective, she believed she was in a happy marriage. That belief made the reality even harder to process. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was confusion, disbelief, and the painful realization that something had been wrong without her fully seeing it. In the aftermath, she described feeling completely broken, not just emotionally, but in terms of the future she had imagined. The life she thought was secure suddenly disappeared. Meanwhile, things moved quickly on the outside. Not long after the split, Eamonn entered a new relationship, making it public within months. The timing raised eyebrows and added another layer of complexity to an already difficult situation. Now, nearly 2 years later, Ruth is finally telling her side of the story through her book Feeling Fabulous. And what she shares is raw, emotional, and deeply personal. She opens up about the early days after the breakup, how the sadness wasn't just in the background, but overwhelming. After 26 years with someone, losing that relationship doesn't feel like a simple ending. It feels like losing a part of your identity. She admits she always believed they would grow old together. Letting go of that idea forced her into an unfamiliar and uncertain future. There were moments where she questioned everything, whether she had missed signs, whether she had been too focused on other things, or whether she simply didn't want to see what was happening. But instead of placing blame, Ruth focused on understanding. Therapy became a turning point. Unlike friends who naturally took her side, a therapist challenged her to reflect, to process, and to make sense of her emotions without bias. It gave her a space to rebuild, not just emotionally, but mentally. Slowly, things began to shift. She started to accept that happiness wouldn't just return on its own, it had to be rebuilt. Day by day, she began finding strength again, even in the middle of uncertainty. She also acknowledged that the breakdown of their marriage wasn't caused by one single moment. It was a series of shifts, misalignments, and unspoken tensions that built up over time. Looking back, she even reflected on differences they once brushed aside, like wanting another child, something Eamonn didn't share. At the time, it seemed small. Now, it feels like part of a bigger picture. Today, their lives couldn't be more different. Eamonn has moved forward quickly, both personally and publicly, while still dealing with ongoing health challenges. Ruth, on the other hand, has taken a slower path. She hasn't rushed into a new relationship and admits she's still healing. She hasn't given up on love, but she's not chasing it either. And that's where things stand now. One person is finally speaking, sharing their truth and reclaiming their narrative. The other has remained mostly silent, but not necessarily forever. Because this story doesn't feel finished. It feels like something still unfolding, where not all truths have surfaced, and not all emotions have settled. What we've heard so far may only be one side of a much larger story. And as more details come out, the real question becomes: is this closure, or just the beginning of something even bigger? Let us know what you think. Do you believe Ruth speaking out will bring healing, or more conflict? For more deep dives into stories like this, stay tuned to Prestige Buzz. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification so you never miss what's next.